I am often asked by strangers, thankfully no one who I work with closely, of just like, do you think that your femininity kind of gets in the way of your career progression? And I'll say no, because it's got me in a number of great places. Because no one expects an effeminate, masculine presenting, non-binary person to be smart or to be powerful. So I use that to my advantage all the time. I'm constantly underestimated. So it's why I'm really great in politics and government relations, because people don't expect me to know what I'm talking about. But I had to work really hard to be overly good at something.
Yeah.
Because that transphobia is there.
Hi, I'm Renata Bernardi, and this is the Job Hunting Podcast, where I interview experts and professionals and discuss issues that are important for job hunters and those who are working to advance their careers. So make sure that you subscribe and follow, and let's dive right in. Jacob Thomas is a human rights activist and one of Australia's most prominent leaders in sexual orientation and gender identity. I invited Jacob to be a guest on the podcast so that they could help me unpack some of the many questions that I have about how employers, recruiters, and coaches can better support trans, gender diverse, and non-binary professionals. And Jacob did not disappoint. This is a much needed discussion that I hope all my listeners will be interested in for their personal and professional development. Some of the topics of our conversation include choosing pronouns, employers and organizations looking for quick wins on pink dollar, the recruitment of queer employees to reach diversity markers, issues of dress codes, conscious and unconscious bias, and Jacob's personal experience in changing their gender marker with their employer, and much, much more. Jacob and I are friends, so for the first 10 minutes or so, there's a bit of banter where at least twice I cried with laughter. So if you want to see us having fun and then discussing some serious issues, you can go to our YouTube channel where most of my podcast interviews are filmed and recorded, and they're there, so you can join us in video format if you prefer. I will have a link in the show notes and on the podcast website for you. They have this effect on me, and I assume on many people as well. When I'm with Jacob, it makes me feel happy, energized, young, and I really enjoy spending time with them. Jacob's very impressive and complete bio is in the episode show notes or on the podcast website. But here's a little bit about them that you should know. Jacob is one of the most talented, hardworking, and influential people that I know. Considering it was my job at one stage to help select the most talented Australians for a very prestigious program for which I was the CEO, you can bet your bottom dollar that I know what I'm talking about. What impresses me about them is that every bit of their brain, their intellect, and their creativity is used for the betterment of society and the betterment of their community. There's a quote that I live by, which I think describes Jacob very well. Adopt as your fundamental creed that you will equip yourself for life, not solely for your own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole community. This is John Monash, by the way, an Australian senior leader and hero. With that sentiment, they have been advising leaders around the world and in Australia, from royalty to CEOs, prime ministers, and presidents. Jacob is the recipient of the Queen's Young Leader Award, recognizing their work on suicide prevention here in Australia. Jacob was previously the coordinator of the Commonwealth Youth Gender and Equality Network and has represented the network at international levels, such as the UN Women's Commission on Status of Women and the ECOSOC Youth Forum in New York. Jacob is close to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and they support many of their causes. It's a lot. You should read the bio on the episode show notes. But here's an example of Jacob's work, that really impresses me. In 2018, they were the program leader for the youth program of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in London. This means that Jacob helped put together the agenda and program for discussion, representing over 1 billion people around the world. Such an amazing responsibility. Not only they are a talented speaker and facilitator of meetings and discussions, but they're also a great writer. And I'm going to link below Jacob's recent publication, which is a chapter in the Encyclopedia for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Then there's Jacob, day job. As part of the Monash Warwick Alliance, it's an important alliance between two universities in two different continents coming together to collaborate on research and education. And they're also super creative, making the most gorgeous outfits for their friends and for themselves, and finding time to produce and perform in shows here in Melbourne. A warning before we begin, we use our adult language at times, not a lot, but if you have little ones around you, you may want to put your headphones on now. Enjoy the chat. I hope it inspires you. It marks this podcast's 1-year anniversary, and it's a really exciting time for us. There's a lot more great interviews to come. So remember to subscribe, to follow, sign up for the newsletter, and keep in touch. Bye for now. Enjoy the chat.
Hello.
Hello. Big hug. I want to hug you.
So much. Just so much. Oh, I miss human touch so much.
I know. I'm so sorry. When will we be able to hug again?
Soon.
You reckon?
I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful.
Yes. Let's do this.
Let's
How
do
are
this.
you?
I'm good, actually. Yeah, it's nice. I'm I've moved house. So I live on Collins Street in the CBD now.
No way. Where?
A corner of Collins and Williams.
Okay, that's nice.
It's very bougie. I love it.
Very bougie. So I used to work there. I used to work on 400 Collins. You know where they demolished the building?
It's so nice.
Yes.
It's
So how is my beloved CBD? I miss it so much.
It's really quiet and I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Quite honest. It's like, because I moved like a month ago or so now, even a little bit longer, maybe 5 weeks. I'm like living by myself for the first time, which is glorious. And it's just like you're in my sewing room at the moment, which is why I've got a flag up to cover all the drag wigs and everything that's just up behind me.
But we want to see the drag wigs.
No, the lighting's not good. That's the only issue. And most of them are like, they're not styled. They're just like, I've done the show and I've just gone, I'm
They're
done
not
with
like
this.
Moira roses.
They're definitely not on the wall. They're not hug up. They don't care if they take on smoke. That's where we're at. We're the absolute opposite of Moira Rose in all ways. It's what it is. But yeah, except for my attitude towards life. So cute. No, it's glorious. Like, it's this beautiful, like, little warehousey kind of apartment, like exposed pipes and everything, like floorboards. Like, I've built a kitchen island that can now move around. So I've got like my pasta machines, like all of my beautiful pastiche bowls and everything. It's just
Is it on Instagram? Should I be stalking you on Instagram to see?
I'm surprised you don't stalk me more on Instagram.
No,
How
I
dare
do
you? And if you'd
not.
like to stalk me on Instagram, Jacob James Thomas. Great, recorded.
I shall add the handle so we can see your kitchen island.
But I mean, it's mostly just in the stories. So that's it. So you have to like get through all the political crap, and then maybe you'll see some cute decor. And that'd be about it. How are you though? How are things?
I'm okay. I'm in my pink office, as you can see.
Which we love.
We are both, I suppose, one of the lucky ones. We have jobs. We have a place to stay. We are doing okay. We haven't been sick.
Yep.
I'm going to the doctors today. I have been meaning to go for a while, but because I have something in my eye, it's it's been bothering me. I have this every spring. I have blepharitis, which is something that old women and newborns have in common. I don't know if you know this. It's too much information.
No, I've heard of it. My mum used to work in aged care. I've heard of this one. Yeah.
I am at that age.
Yeah. That wasn't the implication, but if you choose to take that on and personalize it, you're welcome to do so, Renata. You do you.
It's so sad. Oh, gosh. But it's bothering me too much. Usually I can manage it, but now it's just like I have sand in my left eye. And I'm like, oh, I need to see someone.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm so good here. I'm near the beach, so, I can at least walk and see ocean and water. But it's been a while now. I miss people that I even don't like. That's how...
I miss drama. That's kind of what I'm missing.
I miss people. I miss drama. I miss interaction. And there are parts of my brain. I had a podcast episode conversation with a lady who I met at Monash, by the way. And she was saying there are some things that you can do at work really well, and it's better done at work. We should have been doing them at work. At home. You do them at home. You can do them really well. There are other things that it's really hard to get done at home.
Yeah.
Ideation, collaboration, anything that uses your creativity and it's teamwork and it's implementation work. It's really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are parts of my business that are just, struggling to go forward.
Yeah. I feel that. I felt quite validated when that New York Times article came out. This is weeks ago now, but was talking about emotional muscular atrophy. So as someone who actually has muscular atrophy, which I only found out earlier this year, which makes more sense. Just I've got a new exercise routine to focus on my core. So that's cute. So I'm in constant physical pain now and not just emotional. Thanks PTSD. But I also need a blooper reel. This is what we need. But
I knew this would be fun.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. I will flag. I do now have a meeting at 1:45, but it should be sweet. It should be sweet.
Okay.
Fuck it, it's fine. But it was interesting. Is just in the same way that if you don't use your physical muscles, consistently, then similarly with your emotional and brain-based kind of interactions, so things like empathy and compassion, for example, meaningful connection with people, vulnerabilities, all these really I think what we're trying to sort of understand a little bit more now is sort of core human behaviors, and it's almost essential human behaviors are kind of, people are quite worried about those because we're not quite sure what's going to go on. The big focus, I think this is in the article as well, was a concern around just that happening to children because they're not in school.
Yeah.
But we are now seeing this for adults who are missing their workplaces, who are missing their families, their communities, their meaningful connections. However it is that those are built for those people, assumably across multiple platforms. But it is, kind of, I can appreciate that. And
I know why you love that article so much.
Because it validates me.
Those are the muscles you've been working on all your life.
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah, that gym, my friend, you have the platinum membership to that gym.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it.
Don't know about the other gym.
We're not even at a gym. I'm literally just in my lounge room playing Ring Fit on the Nintendo Switch, which I can say, this is not a paid promotion, but if anyone hates exercising but wants to I'm just trying to focus on my flexibility and getting that back because I miss it because I can't dance and I can't do drag anywhere near as much except for on a Zoom screen. But it's just good to just sort of it's light, it's easy, it's not body shamey, which is so nice. It doesn't tell you that oh, you're fat, so fuck you. It's just kind of nice and easy, and it's gamified, and I'm very competitive, so it's great.
So what is it again? Repeat.
It's called the Ring Fit on the Nintendo Switch.
I don't have a Nintendo.
Oh, gotta get a Nintendo Switch, Renata. I love them.
Is it going to be my COVID big purchase, you reckon?
Yes.
Because I bought a calming blanket early on.
Oh, good choice.
I had to return it. My husband, absolutely hated it, and I bought the king size. I'm like, I'm not going to be under this thing by myself. You have to join me. It was like 60 kilos worth of comic. Like, it was so huge. And I live in a 3-story townhouse, so we had to get this huge box of a king size blanket all the way up, got it out of the box. I bought it baby pink, and
Yes.
he already said, what the hell? And then we both got under it, and a second later he said, absolutely not. And I was hooked. I loved it, and I slept like a baby for 12 hours. And it literally crushed my bones. I could not walk the next day. It was too heavy for just one person.
Yes, it is. It is. That's not the kind of strength training we're after.
No, I read the instructions later. You're supposed to take it easy. You're supposed to do 10 minutes. But once I was down, like I had taken like a warm shower, I was in there, with all my COVID anxiety back in April. And then the next day I was sore.
Yeah, so
move.
so get a Switch.
Get a Switch.
Get a Switch. Go play some Pokemon or some Super Mario.
Let me finish telling the story. I had to return the bloody thing and pay. And it was so expensive. Anyway.
Who is she? Who is Renata Bernardi? That's the question. This is it.
Oh
Just
my God. This podcast is supposed to get me clients, not, scare them away.
It's fine. It shows that you're, just as vulnerable as the rest of us. And, we're all just working through things, Everybody's got their own imperfections. Everyone's learning. It's just what it is.
And I love to dance. I shall get my Nintendo. That will be my COVID purchase.
Good. There we go.
Good.
We stand. Good choice.
We are here to talk about serious matters of job hunting and career advancement for queer people.
Yeah, it's a journey.
It is a journey. Job hunting whilst queer.
Yeah.
I'm assuming not easy. I want to learn everything from you, because as a straight woman, I have not experienced anything like it.
Yeah.
But I love to learn. I'm a terrible learner. I learn very slowly, as you know, with my pronouns.
It's okay.
But I'm getting there.
And that's good. There you go. You got this.
I get there in the end. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's like learning should be a journey.
Yeah.
It's just
not ashamed of it.
Exactly. Good. And nor should you be. I think it's like, this is the thing, right? It's like something on, we use pronouns as an example, is, there's so much going on, in our brains, right? Our brains are brilliant organs. They're phenomenal. I think my favorite sort of an assessment of a brain is either it's the smartest organ in the human body or it's the least smart. Because either it's just sort of like, this is how the world works, this is how we're going to interpret it, and that's great. Or it's just sort of like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So do you know what? Let's just back pain. I'm going to throw that in there. You need me. It's what it is. But I think it's like, you're processing literally millions of pieces of stimuli every second, and your brain's trying to make sense of things. And essentially it's tried to already, I shouldn't use essential, but essentially your brain's already worked out English, it's already worked out pronouns, it's already worked out associations between people and objects, and nouns and verbs and adjectives and pronouns in this case as well. And so when you have to change the association, it takes time. That's what it is. And I think, to be accountable, you have to put the effort in. That's a big thing about being an active ally to any community, is you have to constantly put the effort in.
And I also think you need to listen to it a lot. And what I love about what's happening these days is that you can watch TV shows where people are talking with the right pronouns. And you're listening to it over and over again. And it's wonderful to have that, because then it's easier for me to learn and assimilate.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely so. Because that means it's not just on you. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's like I take it as like I learned French at the start of my university journey, and I decided to take it up literally like a week and a half ago again, and so reinstill it. And I was just like, oh, I'm kind of struggling with this. I'm using Duolingo. But then I was like, why did it work so well the first time? And I was like, because I was watching a lot of French movies. I was watching a lot of French cinema. I was understanding, the casualized approach to language, not just, c'est formal and everything as well. So it was better. And so I'm just like, I'm going to watch Amelie this weekend because it's easy. It's a gorgeous film.
Yes.
I'm just like, I can actually watch it and appreciate it again. And so
I'm going to send you a bunch of stuff to see. Like the Gerard Depardieu early movies are so wonderful. And
great.
do you like Le Bureau?
I do, yeah.
Oh, how wonderful is Le Bureau?
Le
And
Bureau
there's
is
a
great.
funny one that I love. I don't know that I can pronounce it properly because my French isn't good. It's 10%, 10%. They are a bunch of
10%.
10%. They are a bunch of agents for very famous actors and singers and creatives in Paris, and they get 10%. So they're agents. And you have all these cameos of real superstars that come into the show. Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's on Netflix. I watched it on SBS, of course, but pretty sure it was on SBS. And now it's on Netflix. You can see it on Netflix.
Okay, great. There we go. I'll probably watch it on SBS. But that's
awesome.
phenomenal. That's great. Thank you. Appreciate the recommendation. See, we're all learning.
Yes. So coming back, if we're going to go roundabout, coming back to pronouns are important. As you know, I've had a transgender client, a client going through transition. Mm-hmm. I think that client was instrumental in me kind of being hyper aware of opportunities for people to be who they want to be. That client was very lucky that they were very successful and very confident and had their own business, whereas others who are employed have to play by other games and rule books and go through selection panels and recruitment processes and checks, referrals. Mm-hmm. And I was reading, I don't know if you had a chance to look at my research that I've been doing, just things like doing referral checks if somebody has had a name change. Yeah. All of those things that can be so confusing, and for the person coming in and for the employers as well. So I know that you have that empathy as well, and you've counseled people on both sides. And I want to start by asking you, what are the most common issues that job hunters would face?
Yeah, it's
such a diverse community. I don't even know that you have common issues, but tell me.
I mean, and thank you for acknowledging that. I think it's like, I can speak from my my experience and the experiences that have been documented, but I want to make sure that anyone listening to this, which I hope is everyone, doesn't take this as like a definitive list either. I think it's with no particular order. There are definitely issues, as you've highlighted there, about anything from like the recruitment process. Do you have like an equity stance as an organization, for example, that I look at and just sort of go, okay, cool, I'm welcome there. Do you actively promote to your organization, for example, through I'm using queer as an umbrella term here, but queer circles, for example, are you on the job hunt for us because we're good at the job, or are you after us because we look like a diversity marker? And we're all very aware of that these days. It's we can smell the pink dollar from a mile away. And for anyone who doesn't know what the pink dollar is, that refers to, a profiteering, financial and commercial profiteering off of the queer gaze, if you will. So it's basically, if it looks like queer people, predominantly gay white men, will buy your product, then it's a pink dollar. It just sells in that particular way. And generally having, queer people as faces of businesses and products and everything as well indicates that, we're queer friendly, but it's then the question for us is like, but what do you do to support our community? Because all we're doing is that most of us are quite poor, underemployed. So why are we trying to buy your product? What's the point? So there's some interesting things with that. I think when it comes to, interview processes or anything like that, it's like, what do I wear? It's just like, for me is like, I'm a non-binary person, but I have facial hair. This is my voice. So some people would probably call it masculine. I wouldn't, but some people might. But it's like, I always think about it just like, do I dress, fancy? Do I dress, a bit what I would, say queer, i.e. flamboyant? Or, do I wear my heels? Do I chuck my nails on? Do I go and drag? No, that's generally my big no. But,
that's where you draw the line.
These brows are very hard to put down, Renata. They're very hard to cover, and they take a good 30 minutes at least. But it is, these questions of, when I go into an interview, which I haven't done for a while now, thankfully, I would say.
Very well employed, by the way.
Very well employed, thankfully. Very much going to acknowledge that privilege, especially in these current times. It's just sort of like, am I going to get judged? What is someone's unconscious bias towards me? Mm-hmm. What is the very conscious bias towards me? What's going to be the go with that? And then it's like, when you're in the workforce, it's like, I know for me, I didn't have to, but I chose to change my gender marker with work. So I had an M gender marker for male. I want to change it to an X. But at that time, my employer didn't have a process in place. It was very arduous. It was, and because so many employers were dependent on state legislation or sometimes federal legislation as well here in Australia, in Victoria more specifically. And so there was no good process, if you will. There was no opportunity for what we refer to as self-determination or self-affirmation, i.e. I know who I am, I just want to recognize that on a document. Instead, only until last year did trans people and gender diverse people have to be, diagnosed with being gender dysphoric. We had to, have referral letters from GPs, from, social workers or endocrinologists. We had to have been medically transitioning for 6 months minimum, I think it was. Don't quote me on that. But it was so expensive and so long a process. Under the assumption that you were a permanent worker and not just on a 12-week casual contract or a 12-month fixed term contract, it's a lot of effort to go through to then go through all of that, then go to birth, deaths and marriages, get a document changed over to then hand to your employer. So it was a really arduous process. I refused to do any of it because for me, I have what we would call socially transitioned. I don't want to, or need to for that matter. All trans people and gender diverse people have very different experiences. I'm very comfortable in my body. Not all of us hate our bodies. We're not born into the wrong bodies. So that's a good myth to kind of bust. Yeah. But for me, it was just these are my pronouns. This is how I'll dress like this every now and again. I'm going to dress how I'm comfortable, whatever. But I'm here to do the work. Mm-hmm. We live in a capitalist society, so I need to work. So I love my job. So here's how it's going to roll. And we worked together. I worked directly with our HR teams and worked on a new process that was not dependent on legislation, but could still refer to it comfortably. It didn't supersede anything. It was just to make our lives a lot easier.
And that's available to other employees as well?
All employees now.
Yes. Yeah. Is that something that other organizations have also adopted?
It was interesting when we were going through this process. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn with my employer. It was such an unknown space for so many of us.
Yes.
And I know for myself, I try and I've learned through my many, I think nearly over a decade now of years of advocacy, is that, I need to make sure that I was bringing the institution on side with this, because as painful as it can be, sometimes you do win more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So I want to be nice, because, please still employ me. But, there was that moment of saying, we wanted a reference, was there someone else already doing this? And it was quite hard to find comparable documents or comparable processes that were specific to a comparable institution, an industry that was within the state, let alone within the country, that we could refer to and build off of and maybe improve for ourselves, contextualize it. But, I ended up pulling stuff from, I think it was even like Chile, from the United States, from Canada, from the UK, some stuff from New Zealand. And I think I'm fairly sure there was a Pacific country that I pulled from as well. And just went, look, here's how other people are doing this within their own, legislation, within their own allowances. This is what they've done. And I was really glad that my employer chose to be ambitious and chose to be really brave, and just went, yeah, cool. Like, let's change it. Absolutely. And so we kind of just moved through it, made it really easy, got it adopted. And I think it took the hard work probably took about 3 months, but was years of instilling and changing and bringing people on board, and, just getting an understanding of why does this matter? For our population, if you just want to look at demographic, we're a very small percentage of Australian population when we identify. That's always going to be a little bit off. So, the case against would be sort of like, well, there's not that many of you, so why put in the effort? And so, not that my employer put that forward, I do just want to make sure that's very clear. But we hear that. It's just like, it's such a small population, why bother? And so think of just like, well, we might be a small population now, but are we any less significant? I still deserve the respect and the autonomy over my body and my life. And also, I think this is a big thing for employers to keep in mind, is that you're lucky to have us, because we're not just diversity markers, but we come from phenomenal backgrounds. Not everyone, again, we're all individuals and we happen to be in a shared community. But I think this is the important part to disrupt another myth, is that we're all struggling. We're not. Some of us are doing incredibly well. Not everyone is, especially in a time like COVID. We're definitely a community that has lost a lot of our connection and opportunity, like a lot of other comparable communities, and then the intersections that come with that too. But it is, we've got conversations going on now where we just saw this week in Australia that numerous sporting codes finally changed their rules around trans inclusion. It's great because they're just like, we want the best athletes. So that's great. They're at no competitive advantage because of, body parts or anything like that. But, they're good because they're trained, I'm good at my work because I'm trained in it. And I happen to be non-binary. It can be both things. And so, this is there's so much systemic change, emotional change, personal change that we need to do as humans as well. I think anything that's tough is worth doing.
Yes.
At the end of the day. If I had a rule book for everyone to adopt, I would give it to you straight away, but I don't. But if you want help, reach out.
Yes. I guess, I feel like every day it seems, but every few months things go leaps and bounds. Don't you feel like it's our understanding? But it also, the range of responses and levels of education that people have out there is very varied. You might have, for example, an organization or a broker, let's say a recruitment agency, that's very comfortable with non-binary people, with people going through transition, because of their own personal experience, because they have friends that have, they have vicariously learned through their social interactions with others, or because of their own whatever, they know. And then you go through another experience, it's traumatic, because it's a very conservative organization, or it's a very conservative recruitment agency. So it's almost like you really, as a candidate, wouldn't know what you would get.
Absolutely.
And also because, and this is just me sort of guessing, and I, if you do this, I know I'm in the right track. When I was doing my research to help my client back then, that was last year, I did a lot of research with the US stuff, because in Australia it was none. And I found that with us being more open, a lot of older guys were transitioning from very conservative professions, legal profession, right, in their 40s and 50s, that have now decided, okay, this has never been who I am.
Yeah.
And I want to be who I am from now on. And that is something that I think I'd love to help. And I'd love to understand how we can help, as somebody who enjoys doing career change and career coaching and job hunting with clients. That's tough, mate. That's not easy.
No, it's not. I think too is to sort of jump on that point.
But there are people, just to say, there are people in America that are doing that, specializing in helping people advance their careers during transition.
Absolutely. And it's we have to do what we call code switching a lot as queer people, more broadly, and that can be anything from gay and bisexual men, for example, who are cisgender, who might be campy or a bit effeminate. They have to quote unquote mask up at work. Because there was a couple of studies that came out from the UK, I think a few years ago now, that showed indicatively that effeminate men and more masculine butch queer women don't get promoted because they're not seen as leaders. They're not seen as traditional leaders because they don't have that. They're too this or they're not enough of that. And so it's kind of. I don't want to just single out, the T and the NB within the acronym, but it is a tough thing. I know that I have felt the pressure for a number of years, and I've been in, UN spaces, Commonwealth spaces. I've worked with a bunch of presidents and prime ministers all over the world.
You've met the Queen.
I've received a Human Rights Award from Her Majesty the Queen. That's exactly it. Good friends with Harry and Meghan. I like to say, I don't think we're that close of friends, but I like to say
there's a photo of you and Meghan on your LinkedIn profile. I've seen that photo before, and she's looking at you with such love.
Yes, yeah, we're very much on the same track with gender equality and the likes as well. So she's a good egg. I was really lucky just a quick sidebar, really lucky in 2018 to work with a bunch of other young people who we met with Harry and Meghan at the Commonwealth Youth Forum, which I was the programs officer for. On the International Task Force, and we were able to get them to confirm their support for LGBTIQ people. I will say just LGBT is the Commonwealth terminology, which is a bit different to what we would use here in Australia typically. Context is everything with language, always. But, it's we got them to confirm that they supported it, and it went everywhere. So now if you Google Jacob Thomas and Prince Harry, the Harper's Bazaar article comes up, the People magazine article comes up. The Associated Press looked after us. It was unheard of. It was unprecedented.
And still,
day
to day,
it's still a really big struggle. I know that I still try and because this is the thing is I think for me, because I work with gender so much in my academic work and my professional work, and so many people don't think gender is a thing necessarily, or it's an issue that we need to work around. I don't think gender's bad. I don't think anyone should be saying anyway that gender's bad. Let's get rid of gender. But I think what we're trying to understand is the associations that socialize us into these quite policed expectations sometimes. It's just I have no issue with masculinity. I think masculinity is kind of attractive sometimes, but then I think also it can be a little bit terrifying. But then, I feel the same about femininity. I feel about the same thing about an agendered gender as well, where it's just sort of if this is the thing, if it's affecting our behavior to make people uncomfortable and to feel intimidated and to feel, shamed and to feel unloved and unwelcomed in spaces, then I'm going to have an issue with it. Is it gender's fault? No, because I want people to have personal accountability to things. But is there something that sits around us that kind of informs what is considered, correct? And I say that in quotations, to be a correct approach. I am often asked by strangers, thankfully no one who I work with closely, of just like, do you think that your femininity kind of gets in the way of your career progression? And I'll say no, because it's got me in a number of great places, because no one expects an effeminate, masculine presenting, non-binary person to be smart or to be powerful. So I use that to my advantage all the time. I'm constantly underestimated. So it's why I'm really great in politics and government relations, because people don't expect me to know what I'm talking about. But I had to work really hard to be overly good at something, because that transphobia is there. It is constantly there. If I'm using, the non-binary pride flag as my background on this Zoom call at the moment, because I want to be really clear about things. Is like, this is a really important part of the community that I care about. And so if you want me to bring my whole self to work, I'm going to bring my whole self to work. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be a bit facetious here, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to just be like talking about like anal sex in the tea room, and just being sort of like, look at this great circuit party I went to on the weekend. Yes, queen, work, clack, clack, clack. It's just like, I just need some basic things of just, dignity and respect. That's it. And if you expect us to, here's a big gripe for me. I'm going on a slight tangent, but I think this is still really important. It's just like, I just want to be there to work. That's it. If you are only pulling me into meetings, again, this hasn't happened for a while, thankfully, but it stays with me. I'm very hesitant to work with some people because there's the expectation that I will be the queer in charge and that anything queer will just come to me and I'll just handle it and I'll just know it. That is an incredible, unnecessarily unfairly high responsibility to put on someone. And we see this with people of colour in a lot of organisations that are white dominant. We see this with a lot of Indigenous folk who are in a lot of name and industry, to speak on behalf of people. We see this in women's orgs. We see this in, even places like men's sheds and everything as well. It sits everywhere. And so to sort of thrust someone who is probably very smart, very across their industry, but is then also trying to navigate a systemic oppression or systemic oppressions, plural, that's a lot of pressure to put on someone because you're not actually focusing on community care. You're not looking after them necessarily either. You're just saying, hey, you probably deal with this every day, so go. Go deal with the trauma.
And you mentioned, it's not happening to you as much. It's because you've been with the same organization for quite some time now as well. And with people that are job hunting, if they get into an organization and if that pink money was used and it's tokenistic, then there could be that expectation that they will be,
Yeah. And I think it's hard too, is that so many of us are, like, I'm not a great example with this because I'm employed and I'm permanently employed. So many people who are non-binary, trans, queer more broadly also have a lot of deep intersections with poverty, that have deep intersections with mental ill health, various other disabilities as well. So, the opportunity to be full-time employed might not actually be practical. It might also mean that, we don't have full employment or even, good employment for quality. But also a lot of people, there's some interesting stats that are kind of coming out here and there. I can't attribute one at the moment, so I do apologise. But that shows that queer people across the board are generally underemployed. Which we're seeing with university graduates as well. We're seeing this with a number of different populations. We're underemployed or unemployed because we're not getting hired for jobs, because we're, just sort of like, cool, like, you can work in this retail job, but I'll only give you like 1 or 2 days a week. And that's kind of it. But I'll put you at the back. Or like, it's cool if you want to work here, but we're just going to give you a role that no one has to really interact with you because we don't want to be known for that. Like, those are some of the things that, trans and non-binary people have been told, is that if we can't see you, then it's fine.
One, when you mentioned indigenous professionals, and I remember when I worked really closely with a big accounting firm to get more indigenous graduates into that organization. And once it was so hard, once we did that, then a few months later, they were having all sorts of problems with those young associates asking for extended leave. If somebody, let's say, passed away in their community, they needed to go away for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they just expected people to just fit in. And it's just not possible for them. There are expectations that they need to meet as member of their community, that they need to be at the funeral for, I think, weeks, I think it was. And so we had to do extra work. I wasn't there to help them through that, but they had to do extra work with HR to then do some workarounds to see how they were going to do that. And it can be done, where you worked, and I used to work there as well. You can reshuffle your leave. I've done that many times when I was at Monash, where I would buy out extra time so I could have more time with my kids, things like that. But it was just something that they had to do. I'm thinking of this for reasons of health, and need to take time off either for surgery or for adoption or for surrogacy or whatever, and that not really being built into EBAs or insurances or anything.
Yeah, no, you're bang on. We're seeing, I think it goes back to an earlier point, is that we are seeing some leaps and bounds, right?
Didn't you go to Canberra to talk about this with some folks?
Probably.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that.
I know. I do a lot of things. I talk trans all the time. It's just what I do.
Yeah.
I'm just multilingual. It's great.
Yeah.
I've got English, French, and trans. That's what it is. But I think we do have some issues with this. Absolutely, around I guess workplace attitudes and workplace cultures. I think we have forgotten that workplaces are systems that are human-made, and so they can be readapted. When I'm working with workplaces, or if I'm mentoring, which I do quite a bit at the moment, and have done for years, is that I always try and say to, whether it's my clients, or my colleagues, or friends, or strangers on the street, is, you can adapt the system. That's perfectly fine. And you've got to sort of think about, how you're trying to frame that. Because when we put things in of just like, we want to be inclusive, it's just like, well, why do you want to be inclusive? Because you could just make that your standard. That could just be it. Because everyone needs healthcare access, for example. And for a person who might be affirming their gender, for example, through medical or surgical processes, cool. Like, the recovery times differ depending on who you are as a person. But, people get sick. People can get sick for a long period of time, and they deserve to have that security from their workplace to know that they can return. We see issues with people who are pregnant, who come back and they don't have a job, or their job's been reduced.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there's ways in which it's not just about making your workplace inclusive for my community, but if you can make that transition, no pun intended, to being more flexible and adaptable as a workplace, then do so. It should be a thing that's there. I think we're scared sometimes that, if something is accessible and open and available, where your employees don't have to think, can I afford to do this? Can I not afford to do this? Is my job secure? Is it not? Which is a thing that we're all experiencing all the time, COVID or not. Just where we're trying to, we're worried about these things. Where's the commitment, I guess, from our workplace and from our employer? And, I know for myself is that, I'm mentally ill as well. And so, I'm very open about this. It's just like, if I have a breakdown, I have to take leave because I'm in recovery. It's only happened a few times in my life, thankfully, but hopefully it doesn't happen anytime again soon. But it's like there are sometimes I have to take a month off work. I think was the longest one because I was so unwell, and it was just so wild to sort of process it because they said yes and that was totally fine. I had a lot of leave banked up. That was totally cool. But it was so interesting to then extend that to people who have invisible disabilities, who might be in chronic pain, for example, or who have chronic fatigue, or who have a myriad of other, disabilities that we're not focusing on. And it's just like, well, the workplace isn't flexible for them. I appreciate that I'm trusted. I appreciate that we're getting mental health a little bit more understood. But the standard, as far as I'm concerned, should be that people get sick, people need healthcare access. They deserve to be able to do that and not have to worry about their job at the same time. I should be comfortably assured that I'll come back and be okay in that point.
Jacob, for organizations that are like, a large percentage of Australians, businesses, small, medium-sized organizations that want to do the right thing, but they don't know how. They don't have the tools. They don't have the knowledge. They don't, they just need a little bit of help. Is there support for those employers that want to hire, queer professionals that want to support their staff? Is there a place that they can go?
I would say so, yeah. I don't think we've got, we've definitely got some specialist, small organisations that can do that. We've got some larger peak body organisations here in Victoria. There are others throughout different parts of Australia who can help with that. You might get charged a consultancy fee. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know what the the allowance actually is. But absolutely, we have advocacy organisations who deeply care about this. I know Transgender Victoria are a brilliant organisation. I strongly recommend them. And they're adaptive. They're brilliant. Like they're the peak body for trans representation here in Victoria. I can't talk more highly of them. So if they can't assist, then, because they're busy, like all of us in advocacy, then they might be able to refer someone else, I'm just sort of pointing out TGV in this case, just because, for just to give this podcast some longevity as well, as that they're probably the ones they've been around, I think 2 decades now. They've been around for a long time.
And other states would have similar organizations.
Yeah, I know New South Wales has ACON, for example, who predominantly focus on health, but are doing a lot of other intersecting work across quite a few different industries. So, yes, these are peak bodies. They might not be the best fit for you. But for anyone who is an SME or a small, medium business, I would say is just shop around. Shop around as you would for, a consultant for anything else, that's okay. It's okay. I don't think, we're not all one size fits all, and that's okay. But what I will say is just a word of advice is also be really smart about things. Make sure you're not getting gouged by people who are trying to represent us who don't actually represent us well, or who only chuck us in as a 30 second to maybe 30-minute piece at the end of a larger queer inclusion training, or reach out to me. I'm more than happy just to chat to you about stuff. If you've got questions, I pretty much answer any question that comes my way on LinkedIn or on Instagram. So, more than happy to help out if I can and direct you.
Wonderful. You're wonderful. Do you have any last thoughts or tips and advice for the currently unemployed listeners?
I wish I had something that was just going to turn your life around and just say, we'll just do this and we'll magically fix it. I think, let me say this, being unemployed sucks. It really sucks. I've been unemployed, I've experienced houselessness. I've experienced, extreme poverty in my youth. I say that as someone who, was homeless for a period of time during university, or houseless, I should say, not homeless. But, this is the hard thing, is that we're so dependent on work to feel validated. And we're so dependent on, having income to survive. And I just want to let you know that it's not your fault if you're not getting employed. First and foremost, it's not your fault. we're in a recession. We're in a really, really tough time at the moment. And as I don't think this is calming for anyone necessarily, but I want you to make sure that you're giving yourself the perspective that you deserve, that it's not just you. It's not a reflection on who you are as a person, your qualities and your talents. We're in a really, really difficult time. Yes, things are changing for those of us within our communities as well, and things are slowly building forward. But, again, the bars are low. The bars are so incredibly low so often. So I want anyone who's trying to be an active ally for our community at the moment, not to assume it's done either. Like, if you can make the commitment, I guess, after listening to this podcast for your business or for working with your employers even and advocating from within, to be able to say, hey, we actually probably need to work this out, maybe post-COVID, once we're, kind of in recovery and everything as well, to be able to say, we actually need to strategize and work on a priority system. Do that. Work with our peak bodies, work with our partners and our community representatives to build active strategies. We don't know if we can always trust you, and we don't know if it's actually worth our time, or if we're going to be supported, if we're going to be able to, take that extended leave if we need it, if we're going to be safe within your organization either. So do the work for us, so it's not just us, wasting our time and, hoping that it's not just transphobia this time, that we just weren't lucky enough to get in. So, there's two really distinct parts. For the unemployed, it's not just you. I want you to keep persisting if you've got the energy. And for those of you in industry, I really want you to change that system for us, because we're tired and we deserve to, come and make your workplace as phenomenal as it can be. So keep us in mind.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, my friend.
So welcome.
Great having you on the podcast.
Always a pleasure. There we go. Was that it? Because that was that felt very quick.
That was it. That's it. Unless you want to keep on going, we can.
I mean, you've got me for another little bit if you want. It's totally fine. Yeah, probably could do.
I hope you found this episode useful and that it helps your job hunting and career plans. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on social media and on your favorite podcast app. And please join the Reset Your Career community so I can send you free tools and resources to make your career advancement more successful. See you next time!